The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border? Americans are so fed up with what's going on.
The more I listen, the more I absolutely love JD Vance. I mean, every piece of footage, every interview, every rally, every conference, press conference, the guy actually goes out there and proves time and time again, not only is he the best VP pick for Trump, but he's really somebody who is passionate about America. Remember, JD Vance started from nothing. He is literally the personification of the American dream. He was raised in abject poverty by a single grandmother, his mama, who he talks about all the time. The movie Hillbilly Elegy and the book are phenomenal because he literally is the American dream. And so I just can't wait to show you these clips, two clips. One from Martha Raddatz. God, is she a Raddatz? Where he absolutely obliterates her on woke media, live morning television, no less, which is just absolutely beautiful. I love you, JD. And then I'm going to show you him absolutely decimating a New York Times reporter who tries to play gotcha. You got to see this. You got to make this video go viral. Tap the thumbs up. Let's get into it. Here's the first clip of him absolutely destroying Martha Raddatz, and shame on her. I mean, it's just unreal that these guys make excuses for Kamala, for Biden, for the last 4 years of disaster. What does that show you? I want this question percolating before you watch this clip. What does it tell you when the people who are supposed to be reporting the truth, the people who are supposed to be holding the powers that be accountable, start doing this and literally crafting a narrative to support a political candidate that they want to see in office? It's just an absolute egregious miscarriage of integrity in our journalistic industry and beyond. Check this out.
Understand what you're saying, that some people left behind, but he's making these statements that the mayor is flat out disputing.
Well, Martha, you just said the mayor said they were exaggerated.
Grossly exaggerated.
That means there's got to be some element of truth here. And of course, President Trump was actually in Aurora, Colorado, talking to people on the ground. And what we're hearing, of course, Martha, is that people are terrified by what has happened with some of these Venezuelan gangs.
Senator Vance, I'm going to stop you because I know exactly what happened.
Martha.
I'm going to stop you. The incidents were limited to a handful of apartment complexes, and the mayor said our dedicated police officers have acted on those concerns. A handful of problems.
Oh, just a handful.
Only, Martha, do you hear yourself? Only a handful of apartment complexes in America were taken over by Venezuelan gangs, and Donald Trump is the problem and not Kamala Harris's open border? Americans are so fed up with what's going on, and they have every right to be. And I really find this exchange, Martha, sort of interesting because you seem to be more focused with nitpicking everything that Donald Trump has said rather than acknowledging that apartment complexes in the United States of America are being taken over by violent gangs. I worry so much more about that problem than anything else here. We've got to get American communities in a safe space again. And unfortunately, when you let people in by the millions, most of whom are unvetted, most of whom you don't know who they really are, you're going to have problems like this. Kamala Harris, 94 executive orders that undid Donald Trump's successful border policies. We knew this stuff would happen. They bragged about opening the border, and now we have the consequences, and we're living with it. We can do so much better, but frankly, we're not going to do better, Martha, unless Donald Trump calls this stuff out. I'm glad that he did.
Okay, let's just end that with they did not invade or take over the city, as Donald Trump said. I want to move on to
just a few apartment complexes, no big deal.
A few apartment complexes that the mayor did not seem was invading the entire city.
Wow, I mean, you can sense the demonic anti-American sentiment running through. These are supposed to be equivocal. That means neutral, objective. Journalistic integrity entails nonpartisan, unbiased, unvarnished reporting, which is what I hope you get here. She just can't help herself. She just can't help herself. She has to put that in there. She has to stake the little spear in the dagger. She has to get in her 2 cents, even though the facts are the actual facts. You know what? The more I hear from these people, I've said this many times. I'm not right or left. I'm more of a constitutional centrist. I love America with every fiber of my being. I want to see it flourish for not 100 years, not centuries, for trillions ad infinitum for my kids, my great-great-grandkids, and beyond. The more, and there's been times where I've said this many times. I just wish sometimes Trump would, just not say things. And there's certain things that he says. I go, no, we don't need that right now. Even though 99.99%, I love the guy. I mean, we had an amazing rally last night. If you missed it, this guy is just on fire. He is working overtime for us. But the more that I just, listen to the woke, fake mainstream mafia media, the more I am convinced of what Trump said. He says, I think they hate this country. When you hear Martha Raddatz talk like that and actually justify, make an excuse for the abysmal job that Kamala and Vegetable and Chief Biden are doing by saying it's only a handful, just a handful. That's not a big deal. We can deal with that because, it's not coming to my neighborhood. It's not coming to Martha Raddatz's neighborhood. It's not coming to Obama's neighborhood who leaves his 15-bedroom mansion in Martha's Vineyard to go tell poor black men and everybody else in America, you should be voting for Kamala. What's wrong with you guys? Get it together. I don't care that you can't afford gas. I don't care that you can't afford groceries. I don't care that you can't afford rent, your mortgage. You can't even barely sustain a living with the bare necessities. You need to vote for Kamala. What's wrong with you? Yeah, it doesn't affect Martha Raddatz. Only a handful of apartments is okay with her and the entire cabal that she comes from. Think about that, America. Please think about that very deeply, especially when you're headed to the ballot box if you haven't voted already. Here he is sitting down with literally the enemy of the state, the enemy of the people. Let's put it that way, not the enemy of the state. They support the state. New York Times reported this smug, academic, into pseudo-intellectual, can't think for herself, and just tries to play gotcha with JD Vance. And I want you to also notice something else, the lighting difference. Notice how she's well lit, and when they cut to JD Vance, they put him in these dark lighting to make him look more ominous and foreboding. This is all intentional. This is strategic. These guys are vermin. They are literally evil. And by the way, you'll never ever, kudos to Vance, kudos to Trump, you'll never, ever see Kamala Harris do an interview with anybody other than the 100% darling fake media that supports her 100%. Check this out. This is brilliant. Watch Vance work.
Okay. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
Let me ask you a question.
Obviously.
Is it okay that big technology companies censored the Hunter Biden laptop story, which independent analysis have said cost Donald Trump millions of votes?
Senator Vance, I'm going to ask you again. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
Did big technology companies censor a story that independent studies have suggested would have cost Trump millions of votes?
Senator
I think that's
Vance,
the question.
I'm going to ask you again. Did Donald Trump lose the 2020 election?
And I've answered your question with another question. You answer my question and I'll answer yours.
I have asked this question repeatedly. It is something that is very important for the American people to know. There is no proof, legal or otherwise, that Donald Trump did not lose the 2020 election.
You're repeating a slogan rather than engaging with what I'm saying, which is that when our own technology firms engage in industrial scale censorship, by the way, backed up by the federal government, in a way that independent studies suggest affect the votes, I'm worried about Americans who feel like there were problems in 2020. I'm not worried about this slogan that people throw. Well, every court case went this way. I'm talking about something very discrete, a problem of censorship in this country that I do think affected things in 2020, and more importantly, that led to Kamala Harris's governance, which has screwed this country up in a big way.
Senator, would you have certified the election in 2020? Yes or no?
I've said that I would have voted against certification because of the concern that I just raised. I think that when you have technology companies—
The answer is no.
When you have technology companies censoring Americans at a mass scale in a way that, again, independent studies have suggested affect the vote, I think that it's right to protest against that, to criticize that, and that's a totally reasonable thing.
So the answer is no. And the last question, will you support the election results this time and commit to a peaceful transfer of power?
Well, first of all, of course we commit to a peaceful transfer of power. We are going to have a peaceful transfer of power. I, of course, believe that peaceful transfer of power is going to make Donald Trump the next president of the United States. But if there are problems, of course, in the same way that Democrats protested in 2004 and Donald Trump raised issues in 2020, we're going to make sure that this election counts, that every legal ballot is counted. We've filed almost 100 lawsuits at the RNC to try to ensure that every legal ballot has counted. I think you would maybe criticize that. We see that as an important effort to ensure election integrity, but certainly we're going to respect the results in 2024, and I feel very confident they're going to make Donald Trump the next president.
You got to stick around for this. This is my favorite clip from this biased New York Times interview right here. But really quickly, why is it every single time a reporter from the fake mainstream media, they, instead of actually talking about why Kamala Harris should be president, all they do is justify and try to make excuses for every single abysmal mistake they've made that has affected hundreds of millions of American, hardworking, tax-paying American citizens. Have you noticed that? Am I the only one? They never, ever say, well, we think she's this. Well, we think she's that. She's done this. She's accomplished that. Never. It's always, well, everything's Trump's fault. You guys are mean, and you say mean things, and I want to get you. I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. It's all about get you. Raddatz and this, whoever this fake hack reporter is, they do the same thing. It's all across the board. Maddow, MSNBC, Joyless Reed. They never, ever say why. This is why we believe in Kamala Harris. This is why we believe in Joe Biden. This is why we believe in Tim Walz. No, it's always like, well, it's just a couple of whatever. It's a couple of people across the border. Well, it's a couple of apartment complexes. Well, you say this, you're mean. You're a meanie weenie. You ever notice that? Think about that. This is really, really important. Okay, now watch this awesome clip where Vance destroys this fake hack New York Times reporter on housing and immigration. This is brilliant.
The reason that there is a housing crisis is that not enough houses have been built.
And that we have 25 million people who shouldn't be here.
Well, this is the thing.
I think it's both.
I know you do. I don't think that many people who look into this agree with you, but about a third of the construction workforce in this country is Hispanic. Of those, a large proportion are undocumented. So how do you propose to build all the housing necessary that we need in this country by removing all the people who are working in construction?
Well, I think it's a fair question because we know that back in the 1960s when we had very low levels of illegal immigration, Americans didn't buy houses, didn't build houses. But of course they did. And I'm being sarcastic, of course, in service of a point, Lulu, the assumption that because a large number of home builders now are using undocumented labor, that's the only way to build homes. I think, again,
the country is much bigger. The need is much bigger. I'm not arguing in favor of illegal immigration. I'm asking how you would deal with the knock-on effect of your proposal to remove millions of people who work in a critical part of the economy.
Well, I think that what you would do is you would take, let's say, for example, the 7 million prime-age men who have dropped out of the labor force, and you have a smaller number of women, but still millions of women prime-age who have dropped out of the labor force. You absolutely could re-engage folks into the American labor market. This is, I think,
to work in construction?
Of course you could.
The unemployment rate is 4.1%. Most people
unemployment rate, Lulu, this is important.
But most people who don't work can't work in the regular economy. They're in the military, they're parents, they're sick, they're old. They might not want to work in construction.
The unemployment rate does not count labor force participation dropouts. And again, this is one of the really deranged things that I think illegal immigration does to our society is it gets us in a mindset of saying we can only build houses with illegal immigrants when we have 7 million, just men, not even women, just men who have completely dropped out of the labor force. People say, well, Americans won't do those jobs. Americans won't do those jobs for below the table wages. They won't do those jobs for non-living wages, but people will do those jobs. They will just do those jobs at certain wages. And think about this from the perspective of an American company, okay? I want them to go searching in their own country for their own citizens. Sometimes people who may be struggling with addiction or trauma get them re-engaged in American society. We cannot have an entire American business community that is giving up on American workers and then importing millions of illegal laborers. That is what we have thanks to Kamala Harris's border policies. I think it's one of the biggest drivers of inequality. It's one of the biggest reasons why we have millions of people who have dropped out of the labor force. Why try to re-engage an American citizen in a good job if you can just import somebody from Central America who's going to work under the table for poverty wages? It is a disgrace, and it has led to the evisceration of the American middle class.
I want to break out into like a large applause. I mean, this guy, no teleprompter, no notes, no script, unrehearsed. He loves his country. You can tell he comes from nothing. He made it. He went to Yale. He accomplished so much with literally nothing. He is the personification of the American dream, and you can feel it that he loves his country and he wants to see this country get back to where it was. He wants America to be the America that you and I were raised in, where it made actual sense. Man, I think he is the absolute perfect VP pick. And God forbid if something happens to President Trump, I feel so assured and so comfortable that he would be at the helm because he is absolutely emblematic of what America stands for, the practicality, the common sense, the Constitution, what Americans care about. I love this man. I'm so impressed. I can't wait to read your comments. Let me know in the comments down below. What do you think of what you just saw? Those clips from Raddatz, the clips from Lulu, whatever the hell. I don't know. God, it's just the New York Times is such garbage. I can't wait to read your comments. Let me know in the comments down below. Tap that thumbs up because it helps us reach more people. It's not for vanity. Please do so. Check out these videos coming on the screen right now in case you missed this. Tap my face right there by subscribing. It's free, or following. And in the pinned comment is our free newsletter. Sign up for that so you don't miss out on anything. And as always, may God bless you. And may God bless JD Vance and Trump. And may God bless America. I'll see you soon.